Joining us now, senior member of the Judiciary Committee, Senate Democratic Whip Dick Durbin of Illinois. Several Democrats have canceled or refused meetings with President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, while Senator Durbin says he will meet Judge Brett Kavanaugh later this morning. Senator, thanks for being on this morning. There's a lot going on, but you feel it's important to meet with Brett Kavanaugh and let things move forward?
Of course I do. This is the seventh Supreme Court nominee that I will meet with. I have a lot of questions to ask of him, particularly in light of the verdicts and guilty pleas that came down last Tuesday. You see, Brett Kavanaugh, as judge, has some unusual positions. When President Clinton was being investigated, he was rather strident in pushing forward for that investigation. But then he came out and publicly said he believed that presidents should not be investigated or prosecuted in office. It was an interesting theory and a change of his position, but it's completely irrelevant now in the conversation that we're facing in light of last Tuesday.
So what do you think of your colleagues who are trying to put this off and say that there are bigger things going on? Do you think that's fair?
Well, I do. I don't disagree with the premise here that in light of all of the intrigue and accusations that are swirling in Washington, the thought that we are going to put a person on the Supreme Court for a lifetime appointment who will be the swing vote for a generation or more at a moment when we are on the threshold of a constitutional crisis, I think argues to delay this to beyond the election at least. I'm going to meet with him.
Senator
Go ahead.
Senator Durbin, it's Katty Kay here. On the issue of impeachment, do you feel that the events of the past 2 days have changed the calculation in terms of raising impeachment as a campaign issue ahead into the midterms? Would it be now something that you would advise some Democratic candidates to confront head-on or talk about head-on?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let me tell you, I don't believe that we should be testing the waters one way or the other at this point. Let's let the facts unfold in light of the Mueller investigation. What both parties can do to serve the cause of justice is to make sure that Bob Mueller completes his investigation. If at the end of the investigation he says there's no culpability on the part of the president, so be it. However, if he reaches an opposite conclusion, we have to take it to the next step.
Senator, it's Sam Stein here. On this show a little while ago, I asked you if the Senate should delay the Brett Kavanaugh consideration until after Mueller produces his report. At the time, you did not say yes or no. You just didn't answer. I'm wondering if the past week has changed your calculus. Do you feel now that Kavanaugh's confirmation consideration should not happen before the Mueller report is dropped?
I do. I do feel that way for the reasons I mentioned earlier. This is a swing vote on the highest court of the land, a lifetime appointment. It will affect decisions when it comes to a woman's right to choose, when it comes to the pre-existing conditions of families being used against them in health insurance. That'll be decided by this Supreme Court nominee. If there's ever a time when we should at least pause before we jump, this is the time.
Senator Durbin, Noah Rothman with Commentary Magazine. So I've heard some Democrats and liberal thought leaders saying that they believe that this president over this last week has lost a lot of legitimacy and therefore his nominees are illegitimate. So even if they're confirmed, the legitimacy of, for example, Brett Kavanaugh is in doubt. That seems to me like it's giving the Senate short shrift. The Senate confers legitimacy upon a nominee, upon confirmation. Is that how you see it, or do you think these liberal thought leaders and fellow Democrats have a point?
Well, I certainly see it the same way, but remember, I'm in the minority in the Senate. Even if it's a 50-49 effective minority, we are at the mercy of Mitch McConnell and the Republican majority. And there has been an abundant amount of silence from the Republicans since last Tuesday, an indication that they are afraid of this issue. They don't want to touch this president for fear he'll explode in their face. And they're afraid to go back home and face their loyal Republican primary voters and tell them what most of the people in America think, that this situation is dreadful.
Senator Durbin, this is Eddie Glaude from Princeton University. I want to return to the impeachment question. with Michael Cohen's admission of guilt, Donald Trump has basically he's now an unindicted co-conspirator in terms of a felony, right? So why are we waiting for the Mueller investigation? He's already, in some interesting sort of way, implicated in a crime. So can't we walk and chew gum at the same time? Can't we have candidates talk about impeachment as well as put forward a progressive agenda that's consistent with the Democratic parties for the people and the like? Can't we do both and, as opposed to one or the other?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of a more serious power in the Constitution than the power of Congress to remove a president. We should take it as seriously as it is written. This is something that has not been done in the history of the United States. I expect the American people think that we are going to take our time and do this responsibly. Let us not rush to any conclusion until this investigation is completed.
Senator Donny Deutsch, let's take a step back to the Nixon days, and as we've talked a lot on the show, is that his core as Republicans were with him till the very end, and then it tipped. What would you think would be the current day version of what it would take for that same tipping point as far as Republicans and the current president?
Well, if you'll remember, if I remember, and if you do as well, that was after the Supreme Court required the disclosure of the tapes. And I believe at that moment there was a question about whether or not there were 67 votes to impeach the president. And several Republican senators, I believe they included Barry Goldwater, went to President Nixon and basically said to him, no, we can't guarantee you 33 or 34 Republicans will stand by you. And at that point, President Nixon decided that he would leave. We are a long way from that moment, if we'll ever reach it, and I wouldn't predict one way or the other at this moment.
All right, Senator Dick Durbin, thank you very much for being on the show this morning.
Good to be with you.
Up next, New York investigators push forward with an investigation that's out of the reach of the president's pardoning power. That is bad news for him and his adult children. Morning Joe is coming right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.